Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's good to be out. Temperature's 73. Only a few no-see-ums so far, but that could change. The humidity, according to Thomas Jefferson, is 40%, and the wind is 9 miles an hour. I feel a slight breeze. I don't think it's 9 miles an hour. So the fields are alive with the sounds of stupidity, criminality, and why not talk about Hegsmith a little bit, our supposed defense secretary? And what's he supposed to be concerned about? Security. He's supposed to keep us safe, but he's caught up in another scandal in which he has civilians, his wife, his brother, a lawyer, overhearing discussions about military plans on a not-so-secure line because he made it insecure because he allowed them to participate. So once is a mistake. Twice, that's a pattern. And I think there's a third one out there, and you probably know what it is. But how do we ever think this was going to work? We knew. And this is an admonition to Democrats, too. We knew this guy was going to be a train wreck about one of the most significant issues in our government, which is security in an insecure world. I mean, if 50% of what we say about the dangers to America are true, we need a real defense secretary to encourage others to think, instead of war, we should think about diplomacy. So, we're going to get rid of him? Ha! Who, Trump? Trump never saw a felon he didn't embrace. In fact, it seems to be his comfortable association with no-gooders. You know, he just embraces them. He loves them. There's something about the rogue nature, and he doesn't care that they do terrible things, and he's amused by it. And he can always send in, I guess he figures, a second string of people so he can continue to manipulate the agencies in a very destructive manner. Now, I think the prize of the week may be Christy Gnome. Have you heard this? Christy was sitting down having a repast when, unbeknownst to her, her Gucci bag was taken away. And what did she lose? Well, in the bag was her license, medication she takes, uppers, downers, who knows, her apartment keys, her passport. You never know when you're going to have to catch a flight down to some remote place where we're keeping prisoners in violation of their constitutional rights. By the way, Trump made the incredible statement, what, are we supposed to have a trial for every one of these people? Well, a hearing. You know, do you know so little about this stuff, Trump? I believe so. Or you just don't care. And you say it because you're talking to the ignorant. And they say, yeah, well, everybody gets a trial. Even these no-good migrants, which we haven't proved are migrants, are criminal in any way or done anything wrong. Okay, so there's that. Also, our DHS access badge. That's got to be one of the funniest things. And this is what happens when you carry so much cash. $3,000 in cash, poof, out the window. Now, she's in charge of Homeland Security when she can't even secure her own Gucci bag. Whoa, we just got him out there, right? Now, we knew this was going to go off the rails. You build a process in which you intimidate Democrats and Republicans, apparently, to approve people unworthy to shine your shoes. And then guess what? When something happens that is more difficult than that, they fail. Economically, law enforcement, national security. Oh, don't forget the financial markets. Don't forget how much we care about the Pope to want to go to memorialize him when every single policy by this guy Trump contradicts every single thing that Pope Francis stood for. How about that? How did we ever get into this situation? And there is an answer, but let me tell you another bizarre story. It is not surprising because it fits a pattern, but we can't normalize this. Myself and a lot of other people who were upset about what was going on in the Southern District protested that the U.S. attorney had to go because she would not go to court and say the mayor, Eric Adams, prosecution should be dismissed. Okay. And what did that result in? Well, first it looked like the judge was going to do something, and then, whoa, it became a hot potato. And you can always find a way to do nothing. In fact, some say the question is, in an individual case, is the judge a verb or a noun? And the judge appeared to be a verb until he became a noun, an inanimate lump sitting on a log, not doing anything. And someone said, oh, what could he do? Well, what he could have done, since this was the objective, right? The case was about Mayor Eric Adams. There were facts, there were law, there was an indictment, they were going to go to trial. On the way to trial, the new Justice Department, under the incapable hands of Bondi, former Florida Attorney General, and someday hopeful cellmate with Mr. Trump, they wanted to dismiss the case, and they said because, it would interfere with his campaign, and he's more likely to cooperate with us, and if we want, we can bring the case back. So the court didn't know what to do with that. And the answer was, don't do anything. Wait and see what happens. His election is over, okay, and that's not a problem. And you tell the government, you can't require him to do what you want as a hammer over his head to get the dismissal of his case. And the judge in the end dismissed the case. Okay, so that's all behind us. So what is the new thing? Three prosecutors quit. And this was the reason. Main Justice, those people down in Washington, D.C., all those fuzzy thinking people, they wanted these three assistant U.S. attorneys to say that they were involved in wrongdoing, targeting Eric Adams. And they had to acknowledge this or get booted out the door. These guys are kind of mob 2.0, you know? And so what did they do? They said, well, we're not doing that. And they resigned. And they released this information. They left. That's what people with ethics do. Now, let's talk about another one, you know? Harvard. Trump's administration demands that international student records be made available, that funding cuts be implemented because some way or other, never defined, there's something anti-Semitic about Harvard, really. And then there were also tax threats, will take away your nonprofit status. So what does Harvard do? This is no lightweight. They come in, Harvard hits the heavy bag every day and decided to punch this bastard in the mouth. And they suggest that to require audits of professors for plagiarism and to limit international students in some way with no proven misconduct, and to approve of an outside overseer. None of these things are all unprecedented and improper control. And the effects are severe and long-lasting. And this is what the president of Harvard was saying. And he says, they want to tell us when we hire and what we teach. Not acceptable. So another punch, another fight. Now, who are the defendants in their case? This is the most fun. RF Not So Okay Jr., the educational secretary, had to take a break in her wrestling exercises. The GSA head is named as well. And among the most amusing is the propagandist and scourge of individual rights and liberties, Attorney General Bondi. By the by, when we see what Trump is willing to do to win and what he does, it tells you that he lies. So, for example, during the campaign, Trump and the billionaires around him all said what was going to happen when Trump got elected. Okay. And now it hasn't happened. So some say, oh, it's just a difference between the two. And there's even a federal statute that talks about how do you handle inconsistent statements under oath. They can't both be true. And I say, well, first of all, I think the way the law works is wrong, but that's okay. In the real world, when somebody tells you something to get elected, and it's proven to be a lie because they don't do it and never intended to do it, then you call them liars. That's what our national dialogue should be about. Why do we trust these guys to do anything for us? They're always doing us. They're doing us in. And so we have to think in those terms, that we can't trust these people. Now, you know, when you see Dancing Hands Navarro and others promoting what they claim is going to happen, an economic paradise, well, then they don't do that. They do exactly the opposite. And so we have to understand that. We have to understand that what they're doing is wrong, is a deception. They don't care. And people want to believe things are regular, and they're being lulled to believe things are regular. I also see a trend in which some are saying, oh, you know, it's because people are liberal. JFK talked about this. You know, liberal means you're for liberty, you're for freedom. What did I miss in the advanced placement history class about the objectives of our democracy, our republic? It was to be free of monarchs. In that case, a real monarch, and now we have a wannabe monarch. It's about a country that, by the fact of its expanding ability to have a vote, that they have some control over their lives. Now, some like to say progressive because they're afraid of being called a liberal. And how do you advocate for a proposition if you run away from it? I don't know what progressive means. I know what liberal means. There's a lot of writing about it, talking about it, examples of it. People lived and died for it in this country and on behalf of this country, at home and abroad. I'm a liberal, I'm proud of it, and we need more liberals. And when you hear a politician not talking liberal, tell them go listen to Bernie, go listen to AOC. Because if we are not fighting for freedom, then how are we resisting Trump and his minions, his corrupt minions? I take these things that are occurring as evident that we're gaining ground, that we're beginning to talk in the language of liberals, of people who think this country means something by its birth and by its development ever since, until we got these cockamamie characters who would destroy it, Trump and company, most visibly starting in 2015, but they've been here a long time. They go back to Reagan, of course. They go back to Nixon. They come forward to both Bushes. We can't ignore that they have been fighting against liberty and freedom forever. So I belong to a group, National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and we self-describe ourselves as liberty's last champions. Well, I want to expand the application of that term to all of us everywhere who are concerned about this nation. We are liberty's last champions. We are liberal. We are proud of it. Is it liberty for a woman to have dominion over her body? Yes. Does she have a right to be let alone constitutionally? Yes, she does, except this Supreme Court wrangled with the precedents and said, no, they don't. Can you say you're at war when you're not? How is that liberal? It's not. But liberals are against such things, false statements to get us into war that don't guarantee us peace. So those are a couple of thoughts I have for my cathedral of trees. And I expect I'll see you guys tomorrow. All the best. Bye-bye.